to get there.
Clark behind the back. Stewart comes over, blocks the shot. Clark feels like she got hit in the...
Defensively, comes over, right hand.
That hand does hit the face on the follow-through, though.
She does. She meets it up top, but definitely comes down afterwards and contacts to the face. The backside.
The hard screen from Jones, no whistle. Johannes from outside, and it's a second-made three for the Liberty, and then a technical is called. And I believe that was against Caitlin Clark. So a very hard screen. And here it is, Clark trying to fight through the action, gets leveled by Jonquel Jones.
That's a legal screen. I mean, I know it's a lot of contact, but Jones was there.
So Stewart will hit the free throw in New York out to a 9-2 lead.
We need to have a very serious and very direct conversation about what is now developing around Caitlin Clark and the WNBA's disciplinary process, because reports have emerged indicating that Clark is facing a $1,000 fine from the league after picking up her 6th technical foul of the season during Saturday's game against the New York Liberty. And beyond the fine itself, there is a suspension threshold looming in the background that the league's technical foul accumulation rules make a real and urgent concern for the remainder of this season. Let us establish exactly what the reported fine is connected to, because the specific context of this particular technical foul matters enormously for evaluating whether the disciplinary response reflects the application of consistent and fair standards. The technical foul in question is reported to have been assessed following a no call on a screen set by Jonquel Jones during the Liberty game. The screen, which was visible on broadcast footage, was an extremely hard physical play that made forceful contact with Clark.
The backside.
The hard screen from Jones, no whistle. Johannes from outside, and it's a second-made three for the Liberty, and then a technical is called. And I believe that was against Caitlin Clark. So a very hard screen. And here it is, Clark trying to fight through the action, gets leveled by Jonquel Jones.
That's a legal screen. I mean, I know it's a lot of contact, but Jones was there.
So Stewart will hit the free throw in New York out to a 9-2 lead.
Anyone who has watched the clip understands why a player on the receiving end of that contact would react with visible frustration when no foul was called. The contact was significant. It was the kind of physical contact that, had it been directed at most other players in this league, would at minimum have generated a defensive discussion in the officiating community about whether it warranted review. It did not generate a call. Clark reacted to that absence of a call with an emotional expression that produced a technical foul. And now the league is fining her $1,000 for reacting to an uncalled hard screen, while the screener who set the brutally physical pick faces no documented disciplinary consideration whatsoever. Let that sequence register fully. Hard physical contact, no call. Emotional reaction to the no call, technical foul, and fine issued against the player who absorbed the contact. This is the officiating contradiction that has defined Clark's professional experience throughout this season in concentrated and specific form. The contact happens. The contact goes uncalled. The reaction to the uncalled contact becomes the disciplinary event. The player who delivered the physical action faces no consequence. The player who received it and reacted faces a $1,000 fine and is now one technical foul away from triggering a potential one-game suspension under the league's accumulation rules. 6 technical fouls for the season. The WNBA's technical foul accumulation policy carries suspension thresholds at specific intervals that every player and every team staff is acutely aware of. Clark is now operating in that zone. The pressure that creates, the awareness that any visible expression of frustration with officiating decisions carries the risk of crossing a threshold that removes her from a game, is a kind of invisible ceiling that her opponents, her coaching staff, and anyone paying close attention to this situation needs to understand is now a real factor in her competitive environment. Think about what this practically means. An opposing player can set a hard screen, the referee can decline to call it. Clark can react, and the consequence falls on Clark in the form of a technical foul that moves her closer to mandatory suspension. This is the operational reality of the officiating environment she is navigating, and it is producing outcomes that are difficult to characterize as equitable by any honest standard of professional sports officiating accountability. The coaching staff response to the moment when the screen happened and the no call was made was noted by observers. Stephanie White, as the head coach with the ability to object, to draw the officiating crew's attention to what had just happened, to use her positional authority on the sideline to advocate for her player in real time, did not visibly intervene. The pattern of the head coach remaining passive during moments when Clark needs active sideline advocacy has been documented and discussed throughout this season, and it appeared again in this specific moment. This is not a peripheral or minor observation. Active sideline advocacy from a head coach serves multiple functions simultaneously. It creates an officiating record within the game of what the team believes was a missed call. It communicates to the officials that this team is paying close attention and will hold the officiating accountable in real time. It models for the player that the sideline has her back, which can reduce the emotional pressure that produces the kind of individual player reaction that then gets assessed as a technical foul. And it deploys the coach's institutional authority to protect the player before the player feels compelled to protect herself. The absence of that advocacy, in a moment where Clark absorbed hard contact without a call and then received a technical for her reaction, represents a missed opportunity to prevent exactly the outcome that is now being reported as a fine and a potential suspension risk. Now let us address the broader officiating context surrounding this game, because the Saturday Liberty game contained a full and complicated picture of how officiating was applied across 40 minutes of competition. The second half of that game saw a notable shift in how the officials were managing plays involving Clark. She was getting to the free throw line at rates that reflected the kind of officiating attention that she routinely does not receive. The contrast between the first half, in which hard physical plays went uncalled and Breanna Stewart was being rewarded at the line for the Liberty, and the second half, in which the pendulum swung considerably, was visible and significant. This back-to-back game also represented Clark's first consecutive game appearance since returning from her back injury. Stephanie White addressed this in the postgame media availability, speaking about managing Clark through the physical demands of playing back-to-back games while still returning from injury. That context is legitimate and relevant for understanding some of the minutes management decisions surrounding her return. But the combination of managing her minutes restriction while also now managing her technical foul accumulation threshold creates a genuinely complicated operational environment for this franchise heading into the final stretch of the regular season and any potential postseason run. A player who is limited to 26 or 29 minutes per game due to an injury management protocol is already operating with constrained availability. Adding the pressure of a technical foul accumulation that is approaching a suspension threshold means that every visible emotional reaction on the court now carries disciplinary risk that sits on top of the already existing physical management concerns. This is not the environment that should be surrounding the most commercially significant player in this league at the most important moment of her competitive season. Every game matters at this stage of the schedule. Every available minute matters for a player still working back toward full capacity. And the technical foul accumulation situation means that Clark now must navigate the additional psychological burden of knowing that expressing frustration with officiating decisions, something that players across this league do regularly without the same rate of technical foul assessment, could cost her availability in a game that matters for Indiana's postseason positioning. The fine itself, $1,000, is financially manageable for a player of Clark's profile. It is not the dollar amount that carries significance. It is the accumulation it represents and the threshold it pushes her toward. The $1,000 fine is the visible part of the disciplinary action. The unseen pressure of the proximity to a suspension threshold is the part that actually affects competitive decisions and competitive availability. There is a specific irony embedded in this situation that deserves to be named directly. Adam Silver said publicly this week that the treatment of Caitlin Clark has been incredibly unfair. He said that changes were needed. He implied that those changes were in process. And then in the first game following his public statements, Clark received a technical foul for reacting to a hard, uncalled screen and is now facing a fine that moves her closer to a suspension threshold. Stephanie White addressed Clark's performance and her back-to-back availability in the post-game session.
That she looked out there, how is she feeling after, playing the back-to-back?
Yeah, she seemed to be feeling pretty good. I mean, I think we'll get more of a sense tomorrow. There were times where I felt like she looked like she was a little off balance, but nothing that I thought was concerning. She played. I thought she played heavy minutes. I thought she did a really good job. I felt like she looked like she was a little off balance, but nothing that I thought was concerning. She played. I thought she played heavy minutes. I thought she did a really good job of taking what they gave her. Her facilitating was outstanding. She wasn't making the same kind of shots she was making yesterday, but I think that's to be expected on a back-to-back for the first time in a couple of seasons.
With Caitlin, got the tech there in the first quarter. Did you get explanation on that technical foul? And then secondly, because it's 6 and 8 you get suspended, does that conversation around that suspension get louder?
Yeah, I didn't ask for an explanation. I think there was a reaction probably after a call or a no call. I don't remember exactly at that moment. But yeah, I mean, certainly there are conversations, and there have to be conversations. It's a long season. And then, certainly after you get to the 8, I don't know what it is. What is it, like every two after that? Every two after that. So making sure that we're strategic in using our technical fouls.
You outscore them, I believe, 18-3 in fast break points. I know that's always an emphasis for you guys, but to see it on the second night of a back-to-back, I guess, how impressed were you with that?
Very impressed. I thought our mental focus was good. 30 points off of turnovers, really good. It really, our defense allowed us, I don't know what it was in the second half, but I felt like our defense allowed us to get out and play at the pace that we wanted to, with the exception of, we had 2 at halftime. So, I mean, it's the defense. It allowed us to get out and play at the pace that we wanted to play.
All over the place today.
You guys, come on.
How can one say you kept the team together when it felt like a drag, especially in the third quarter there?
I mean, I know that we've got some veterans on our team, but we've still got a young core. And I think just continuing to communicate, to bring awareness to poise and composure, to where our energy goes. I mean, we have to funnel our energy into things that are going to help our team. We have to navigate runs and highs and lows and opponents and made and missed shots and defensive coverages, to expend too much energy over things we can't control. She doesn't care. She doesn't care about the numbers. She doesn't care about anything but winning. And that's who she is.
Those comments reflect a coaching staff that is engaged with the immediate competitive and health management questions surrounding Clark's return. Whether they reflect a coaching staff equally engaged with the officiating protection dimension of her situation, the kind of active sideline advocacy that prevents technical foul accumulation from becoming a competitive crisis, is the question that the coming games will answer. The season is in a decisive stretch. Indiana is playing winning basketball. Clark is approaching full competitive health. The historical performances of the last 2 games represent what this player and this team can be when the conditions align correctly. A technical foul suspension at this moment in the season, triggered by accumulation that reflects an officiating environment that even the NBA commissioner has publicly described as unfair, would be an institutional failure of the most consequential kind. The fine is reported. The threshold is real. The next technical foul carries suspension risk. And the coaching staff and the league's officiating apparatus both have specific and immediate responsibilities for ensuring that this situation does not cost Indiana and Caitlin Clark competitive availability at the worst possible time. The ball is in their court, and given everything that has happened this season, the expectation that they will handle it with the seriousness it demands is one that has not consistently been met. The next few games will tell us whether this time is different.